Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. On a personal note, I do have an example of intimidation going on in the schools. In my school, there are administrators who have, in the moment, have suspended someone for 2 weeks and terminated someone as a direct result of affiliation with me in terms of this rally. So it is not far-fetched to say that there is intimidation going on, and that's what we're afraid of.
And just before the next speaker on that point, there is a history of retaliation when people exercise their constitutional rights. Employers, government officials who don't like the criticism. And it's understandable why people don't like to be criticized. But people have a First Amendment right to, in fact, criticize. If you were praising people, no one really needs a First Amendment right for that, because there's not going to be any tension. The First Amendment protects the dissenter. It protects the protester. It protects the person who's critical of the status quo. And I can tell you that on many cases that I've been involved in, people are afraid to put their name to a petition. They're afraid to, for example, in this case, we had to give names of who the monitors were for the demonstration. And there were some teachers who didn't want to put their name on the list. And in fact, the teachers said to me, get the paper back after the demonstration. And that is a manifestation of the fear of government retaliating against them. And for those people who don't know history and think that this is far-fetched, just go back in the early 50s and look at the McCarthy period in the United States of America. I'm not saying this is that, but that's what the dynamic is about. People are afraid to speak up, they're afraid to demonstrate, because they're afraid there'll be punishment and retaliation against them, especially in their employment situation. This is a serious matter.
Can I piggyback on that?
Sure.
My name is Julie Woodward, and I'm a teacher. I was concerned about my name. I'm concerned about many things. I was concerned about the pens, the barricades, which I've seen as I've protested, and other things, anti-war demonstrations. The encroachment on civil liberties is way before today. So when I was working, I was a marshal, and all the marshals had to give their names. I wanted my name back. But Inspector Murtaugh was very helpful. He said, did you like the way we set this up? And I said, fine, this is great. Except the pens. I don't like feeling as if I'm doing something wrong. He said, you're not doing anything wrong. You want me to loosen up the pens? And I said, yes, please. So he took off 2 ends of the pens so that it was just the wall from Central Park plus the barricade to protect people from falling into the street or protect the pedestrians. It was an easy, simple thing. We worked together with the police very well. I had no intention of looking up there. I was just doing what I was told, making sure people didn't have megaphones, we didn't have permits. But then found out later that we were being videotaped from above while we were doing our job, trying to keep it as peaceful as possible as what we signed up to do. As a teacher, all the time, we have to think how far we're going to go with this, because we've been told by the union and we've been told by the regulations that you are held to a higher standard. We can't protect you. If you get arrested, we can't protect you that much. You're held to a higher standard. And this makes me very worried, especially since civil liberties is not being taught in the schools anymore. So all these things contribute to creeping control, and I'm ready to stand on the line and say that I don't like it.
My name is Woody Henderson. I'm an activist. I've been involved in many demonstrations, rallies, and protests in New York City. Never once involved in one that had any types of issues that were violent. I was part of an affidavit that the judge had part of, and the police officers knew about it also, where we held a demonstration in front of the mayor's house several years ago. Again, with students, with parents, with families, not one piece of disorder involved in that. So I'm a little bit disappointed that this is continuing, that this type of harassment, intimidation is what it is if it's taking place. And in this day and age, I think it's very important that we as a people begin to push harder to have peaceful protests, rallies. There are things that are happening that we're not happy about. And the situation of this country is as such that people have a right to come out and demonstrate. Students have rights. Mayor Bloomberg's choices on the education, that's his, but if he has a right to do that, we should have one also. We're not telling him that he doesn't have a right to take his position, we just disagree with it. So please, Mr. Mayor, let us know what was happening, why it was happening, and why, when I know Mr. Siegel has never been involved in anything that was violent or anyone thought was violent. And the police officers, the inspector that was there, has seen me and known me in other demonstrations. So he knew I would not be involved in anything that had any potential of being out of order. Thank you.
I think we have one more speaker. Okay.
Hi, I'm Lisa Donlin. I'm a parent and I was one of the marshals that day. And I have to say I'd like to congratulate the organizers, the groups and the individuals who put that protest together. As peaceful as it was, we obviously hit a nerve with the mayor. These were a group of students, young children, adolescents, parents, teachers, educators, and community members who really want to respond to the fact that under mayor control, the community has absolutely no input or voice about the closings of schools, the replacement with charters and other schools that are not serving all of our children. I do know from an off-the-cuff conversation I had with one of the organizing officers who, and I know he said it in jest, basically we were branded as a group of communist rabble-rousers. I think simply because, and I'm just here interpreting a informal conversation with someone I know informally, that we dared to encroach so close to the mayor's abode, and somehow that put us in some kind of lefty danger zone. And I'm starting to now figure out that maybe we were considered rabble-rousers because we dared to overstep our bounds and try to get so close to the mayor's home. So, thank you.
Okay, if everyone has spoken, do you want to sit up here? And we now open. Just introduce yourself to us so that we know who you are.
I'm Josh Oettinger from Channel 7, and I guess I'm a little confused because I wasn't aware that there's a law requiring permission to be obtained before taking a picture of somebody in public. So,
It's connected to protest activity, and it's because of the history that when there was protest activity, there was evidence that the government was surveilling people and keeping video, pictures, memos about people. I can talk personally. I've been spied on. There's memos in their files about speeches that I made. I was never worried about that because I always said I didn't have time to keep a scrapbook, and I'd let my grandchildren go to the NYPD and get freedom of information. When I looked at the memos, they said things that I never said. So there is a concern, and there's a concern that when the government is recording and keeping potentially a database on activists, and as a result there was a lawsuit, and there was a settlement with the city of New York setting forth specific guidelines of when they could do that, when they can send a covert operation into a meeting. I've had a situation when I was head of the Civil Liberties Union. We had a press conference. We don't ask any of you to sign in. And it turned out that there was someone from the NYPD at the press conference, and we didn't know that. They can't do that unless they get permission beforehand, and the predicate is that they have to have some cause to go and do that kind of activity. Similarly, the picture taking or the videoing, people have a right to anonymous free speech. So where does the government get the right to be able to record your activity? That's what the Handschu Guidelines are about, restricting when government can do it.
Well, but people, I mean, if you speak in public, don't you abdicate your right to anonymity? We can take a picture of anyone and put it on TV.
But you're not the government. That's the difference. You have a First Amendment freedom of the press. When we're here, you take our picture. But if any one of you was a member of the NYPD or the government and was doing what you were doing, you can't do that unless you're complying with guidelines. If there's a First Amendment connection to it, and it all comes out of the protest movement. And why? Well, the courts, rightfully so, don't want to create a climate where people will be afraid to demonstrate, afraid to speak out. My opinion is there's too many people who don't speak out. Woody's right. We need more people to protest. nonviolently, peacefully, within the First